Welcome back everyone to another ESO video. Today is about the Arcanist. As you can see clearly, we've got loads of shiny shapes going off. Dwemer magic by the looks of it. I don't know what the hell to call it apart from arcane magic, but it sounds like cogs and stuff and things. If you are interested in what the Arcanist can actually do in terms of its visuals, audios, and actives, of course, what it does in combat, then stay tuned. Everything is going to be shown today because I'm going to go over every single skill in the game for this class. So obviously we'll start at the beginning. We've got three major skill lines. We've got the DPS-E skill line, we've got the tanky skill line, and we've got the healy-E skill line. Everything is here for the standard kind of expectations of a class. You've got three individual skill lines. Now the base game classes obviously had some of that initially, but some of them kind of bled into others. But when we got the Necromancer and somewhat with the Warden as well, it was more focused on damage, tanky, or support, and healing and or support. It was quite split up and quite obvious which skills belonged where. However, you can mix and match them as much as you like. That is always an option, and they did the same with the Arcanist as well. You can do what you want. But they all come with their own individual perks and bonuses as well. So we've got three different passive skill lines alongside the actual actives. Now the actives are very different to what you may have seen before. With the hybridization to the game, based in the stat changes basically. Bear in mind, obviously, you could always build hybrid builds, but they made it so it's easier. The way they made it easier is that you can now scale your skills off of your highest offensive stats. So weapon and spell damage, or stamina and magicka. Either one of the two sides of your spec for your character in any order would determine the strength of the skill. And that's still a thing for the Arcanist, but with a slight twist. Instead of it contributing as far as the output is concerned, it changes the cost of the skill. So some skills, if you have high stamina, it will cost stamina. If you have high magicka, it will cost magicka. That is a big twist, and that's going to open up some options and possibly allow for a bit more exploration when it comes to creating your builds. Now, the first skill we're going to go into is in the Herald of Tome skill line. This is your damage skill line, and it's the ultimate, the Unblinking Eye. Now, to start off with, this will place an area of effect on the ground, do damage over time every 0.5 seconds, which is bloody fast, and you can move around, and the beam will basically stay with you. The beam can be repositioned by recasting it, however. So if you activate this here, and you want to put it somewhere else, you can move it by activating the skill. So you move over here, it will come with you if you reactivate your ultimate. So that's quite handy. We'll show that again, just in case that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You won't see a massive visual for the actual button press, but you will see that you can move it. So we'll put it down here. I'll aim over here instead, and I'll place it again, and it will follow over there. That's actually quite fun, especially if you've got a moving target, because technically, if you can gauge which way they're going to run, you could place it there, aim for it to go there afterwards, and it will follow the target. So, tactical play there. Now, of course, this does come with two morphs, just like every other skill in the game. We're going to show you the first one, which is the beam's duration is increased automatically and follows the initial target and searches for a new target if it's slain. So what that will do is it will actually track a target rather than you having to manually do it. And if it dies, it'll look for another one. So that's actually quite handy. But we've also got applies a snare to the enemy hit and damage increases over time. So you've got two options here. You've got a slow down ability with more damage. So if you did need to chase something, they would be slow and it'd be easier to follow them. Or you've got one that follows them by default and you don't have to actually do anything, but the damage is less. So if we show you what this looks like, need ulti. Come on. As you can see, same applies. The beam is slightly different, but you can still not actually move this one. So it's a little different to the original. But that is on the condition that you take the one that does the longer duration. The longer duration one will just stay where it is. So the trick to it, however, is it does follow. One you have to control, this one you don't. Hopefully that made some sense. Muffled words a bit there. Now, if we respec that to the other version, you will get this. We need ulti. You'll get the higher damage variant, with a different color beam, and you can still move that. So one retains its initial benefit of being able to move it around. The other follows the target. More damage, bit more manual control. Less damage, no control required. So the choice is really yours. Initially, when we first tested this, it was very different. It had 3 beams coming out of the face, and it was all over the place, and it wasn't quite where it made sense. Now it's a lot cooler. Remember, when we first tested this internally, even though we had 5 days access to it, it was a very older model of the game, a very older model of the patch, so all the information in there was not necessarily accurate. Now we're actually getting to see what we're hopefully getting at the end. But bear in mind, again, this is PTS. Anything could change over the next 5 weeks. So that's your first one, your major ulti, which is pretty cool. Now we're going to go over the next... Oh, this is a very cool skill. The next major skill for your DPS skill line. This is basically your bread and butter. It doesn't have to be, but I would recommend that it is. This cost is determined by your maximum resources. So as you can see there, it costs Magicka at the moment. Now, if I put on Stamina Food instead and make that bar bigger, all you do is you have one bar bigger than the other. Bigger mag bar costs Magicka. Bigger stam bar costs stamina. But this is simple. Now, what this does is it fires single target attacks at the target. Each time you fire this, you will generate 1 crux, up to a maximum of 3. But the more you maintain and don't spend, the stronger this will be. Each one that you have will increase the damage of the skill by 3%, so up to 9% in total. And all you have to do is this. It's quite simple. Looks kind of cool. We've got 3 crux. We've got our maximum amount now, and so we get the most out of it. Don't look at the damage numbers. We're not built for that. However, if you morph it, you've got 2 different variants here. One will give you increased crit chance, which is massive, by the way, between 1095 to 2191 weapon and spell crit rating, which deals 3% increased damage with each crux active when cast. So if you've got 3, you get a massive crit bonus. Just bear in mind, by the way, crit chance is 219 per 1%. That's a 10% crit rating right there. That's huge. Or what you can do is you can have the other morph. This is completely different. It still applies the same way. It still builds crux the same way. It still does extra damage the same way. But as you saw there, each fire or each shot is actually 3. Well, on the 3rd one of each shot, it explodes. Area of effect, spammable, utilizing a single target. That is pretty damn cool. Now the next skill. If you want to spend your crux, you can. But you don't need crux for this skill to work. We've got Fatecarver, which is absolutely nuts. This will basically give you a Bible beam in area of effect, but also straight in front of you. So it's a thin-ish beam, but unlike the Jesus beam, it's not single target. It does actually have a spread. Again, this is determined by your maximum resources. So if you want it to cost Magicka, you need a big mag bar. If you want it to cost stamina, you need a bigger stamina bar. And on the bar, you will see what your cost actually is. Lots of passives and bonuses do contribute to that, yes, but that's what we've got at the moment. To start with, it's 4 seconds long, and it will do damage every 0.3 seconds. But the more crux you have, the stronger it is, but it does consume them. So use this skill to build it up, and this skill to spend it. And it looks like this, which is nuts. It's a really long duration skill, and it hits really bloody hard if you build for it. That's a slight spoiler there for another skill. We won't go into that. Now, the morphs for this are also situational. Depends on how you want to build. Depends on the fight you're in. Depends on how you want to really play, technically. So this one applies a snare to damage enemies. This is quite helpful for enemies that are trying to run away, because then you can chase them. Obviously, I didn't show you that, but you can do this. It doesn't aim just in front of you. You can move it. Yes, anywhere you aim, that goes. But if you take this morph, consuming crux also reduces the cost. Now, next up is Abyssal Impact. This is quite straightforward. It's the tentacle skill. If you haven't seen this before already, hold on. This is awesome. You infuse your arms with abyssal magic to form tentacles that lash out at your foes, dealing X amount of damage, which is physical, by the way, and enemies are immobilized for 3 seconds and marked with abyssal ink for 20 seconds. You deal 5% increased damage to enemies drenched in abyssal ink. So while this is technically a spammable in area of effect and in immobilization, this is also a buff to you if you have it active. So you might want to incorporate this into your character regardless of whether you're going to spam it or not, because that bonus there increases all of the damage that you're going to do to it. Now, looks like this. How cool is that? That is some special shit. Anyway, the morphs. The area of effect on it is huge. This one creates a crux and deals increased damage to enemies below half health. So technically, this builds crux, much like your first skill did, but it also counts as an execute. This gets stronger the lower their health. Your area of effect spammable execute. And this can get quite dramatic. The lower the health, the more damage you do. The other morph now costs magicka instead. See, this one isn't scaled off of whichever one is highest. This does cost stamina, but you can change it. And this also has a slight twist to it. Now it's magic, but now it deals frost damage instead of physical. You consume a crux to increase the ink's strength and immobilization duration. So you damage people that are inked by an increased 2%, and immobilization is increased by 1 second. So you've got a 4-second immobilization, and you've got extra damage done. But that's per crux spent. So that can go up to 6% and 3 extra seconds. So that's really, really handy. You could utilize this as a DPS, or you could utilize it as a tank, because you might want to hold those enemies still for longer. So the choice is really yours. The visuals don't really change too much. It's still a tentacle, but the colors are slightly different. Pretty cool all round. I don't think you're going to want to leave home without that. Very, very cool. The next ability is kind of a buff to yourself. It changes your weapon, and it looks like this. Cool Wizzy Staff for 30 seconds, in fact. Now, the benefit to this particular skill, even if you don't use it, is that you have major brutality and major sorcery at all times, while slotted on either bar, which is very different. Normally, if you have a passive bonus like that, it has to be on the front or the back, or you have to double up on it. You don't need to double up. As you can see, it's on the front. If you look at my buff timers at the bottom there, there's 3 blue buffs on the left-hand side. Cut the middle one out. The 2 either side are brutality and sorcery. Swap bars, still got it. Now, all you need to do is activate class abilities. If you do so, it will do extra damage. Now, this can happen once every 5 seconds, and during that time, obviously, you'll generate a crux for doing so. But if you change it, you change the morph of it, you've got 2 different options here. This increases the frequency of damage, so it's actually faster paced. So instead of once every 5 seconds, you'll benefit from the magic damage, it's every 3. And the same goes for your crux as well, the generation from that. This one, however, when dealing damage, restore resources. So it still remains the 5 seconds, like once every 5 seconds it will pop, once every 5 seconds you'll get crux, but once every 5 seconds you'll also restore 510 magicka and stamina. So 1 for resource management, 1 for extra damage. Now just bear in mind these do stack, of course. All the different ways to generate crux do stack with each other, but this one, of course, is just a freebie. It will just fire when you're doing damage, so you don't really have to do anything active to build it. You can build them really, really fast. But again, if you don't have those skills available, or you haven't put them on your bar, that's when you have to make some more harsher choices. You can go with a very slow rate of building, or you can go for a very fast rate. Now, the final one for this particular skill line is the Imperfect Ring. Summons a flawed rune under the enemy. This is on the target of the enemy, by the way. 22 meter range. And over 20 seconds, it'll do magic damage. Any ally near the initial target can activate a synergy from this, and it will do frost damage in area of effect. So, this is quite simply applied by picking a target and attaching this to it. That will last 20 seconds. But, watch this carefully. All of these individual targets are not being picked. Only this one is. They've all got damage over time on them. So it's an area of effect damage over time ability, but requires a target to kind of activate it. Much like Fetcher Flies, this requires a target, and anyone standing near it will suffer. Now, the morphs for this are slightly different to what you would normally expect as well. So, first of all, place a rune under the target that deals damage and pulls nearby enemies after a delay. So, this lands underneath the target, and enemies around it get sucked in. Technically an area of effect pull. That's a little broken at the moment. They did note that on the known issues. Hopefully they'll fix that over the next couple of weeks or so. They said sort of week 2, week 3, that will be functioning correctly. But that's an area of effect pull to that spot. Now this one adds an explosion to it after 6 seconds, but you can't activate this over top of itself before it goes boom. So you can apply it, goes boom after 6, apply it again, and so on and so forth, but that's going to cost you loads to keep doing that. But Essentially, it's a dot with a bomb attached to it. Basically built in a Zerblight. Also, up to 3 allies can activate the Frost synergy. Up to 3. Not 1 synergy and everyone runs to it and it gets pressed once. Up to 3 people can do it. This can go off multiple times. So it's quite nasty. And basically, it does this. Oh, wrong one. Looks relatively similar. But after a short period of time, goes boom. It will go boom. I didn't morph it, did I? Don't tell anyone I did that. Free blooper. Let's try that again. So on this target, that will go off in a few seconds. You can see there's 2 dots on there now. One is actually a timer, the other one does damage. Boom. And then it will continue. It's got minor maim on it because that was a chance-based thing, but it's pretty cool. Now this again, here, attaches to 1 target. Everyone's got the dot on them. One of them's got the extra timer. Then that will go boom. There it goes. And then after that has exploded, you can reactivate it if you want to start that boom timer again. Now, bear in mind, you can't reactivate it on another target while you've got one already running. So that's got 4 seconds left on it. I can put the dot on him, but I can't get the bomb. You can only do 1 bomb every 6 seconds. So if you did apply it to this guy here, as soon as that's about to go, you got 2 choices. Put it on him or put it on somewhere else. But you get the idea. Now, that doesn't go off more than once per cast, so that's a really long duration for a damage over time for it to only go boom once, and I do feel like people are going to stack it and recast it unnecessarily. But, I mean, maybe that'll change in the future, or maybe that's their intention. Because it isn't necessarily cheap. 3.5k to keep using over and over and again is a lot more than a basic spammable, so you'd have to watch your resources, especially if you're using Fatecarver as well. So, who knows? But it's pretty cool. Now we're going to go into the tanking skill line. This is called Soldier of Apocrypha. Some of these words are so hard to say fast, I don't know how the lore masters do it. This ability is quite simple. Gather true strength of Apocrypha, blah, 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 blah. Protect your tentacles and a damage shield that absorbs 60% of all damage for 10 seconds up to a maximum of 94,700. That is not a flat bonus that you get regardless of how you build. Depends on your maximum health. We'll go into how far this went on the test server previously, before this version of it, after we get through the morphs. But basically, when the shield collapses, you lash out, dealing all of the damage you've absorbed as magic damage to enemies within 5 meters over 10 seconds. So, activate it. Mega bubble damage shield, which looks cool as hell. And all the damage you take during this time, up to 94k, will go pop and damage over time all of these targets here. If they were hitting you, that is where the damage goes. It's quite aggressive. Now the morphs, this one no longer deals damage to enemies, but grants your allies a damage shield when you are hit. Every time you are hit while this is running for its full 10 seconds, your group, up to 6 allies within 15 meters, will be given a damage shield for 4 seconds. But it can happen once a second. So, for argument's sake, if we made this a 100k damage shield, you'd basically get somewhere around sort of a 17 to 20k damage shield for your group. It's not just once. Every time you get hit while that shield is present on you, your whole group will constantly get a shield, get a shield, get a shield, get a shield. It's really, really strong as a protective bonus to the group. Outside of that, however, if you want to be... we won't call it selfish. Let's say if you want to do some damage while you're not dying. This morph here is bonkers. This one, while it looks relatively similar, adopts its original idea, see the purpley one, a little bit different, of giving you a damage shield and returning damage, really high damage actually, because it bases off of your max health, but what this does is it enhances the shield furthermore. This here says 112 instead of 94k. On the initial server that we tested on internally, which may be different now, I managed to crank this up to just short of 180, almost 190k damage shield. Which, when it goes boom, if you're getting hit a lot, can do a substantial amount of damage and area of effect to lots of enemies at once. The damage shield can be absolutely insane for this, and for a 200 cost in ultimate, that rivals Magma Shell quite easily. Different way to play, yes, but also very, very cool. Bear in mind, you can still be knocked down and all that kind of stuff. You can still be hit as far as damage is concerned, though, because the shield absorbs 60% of all damage for 10 seconds, not all damage. So you will still take damage. Now, this is new. Very new for any class. No class has a taunt until now. This ability costs magicka to start with. It does magic damage. It applies minor maim guaranteed. And it taunts the target. And it generates crux. And while slotted, damage taken to you is reduced per crux active. So you basically can go up to 6% reduction there. All you have to do is this. That is a taunt. Sword and Board, Destro Staff from Ice and Inner Fire are all taunts. Now we have a new one for the Arcanist specifically that helps generate crux. Now the morphs for this had 10 meters when we first tested it, so they have altered it. It's now 15. The morphs for this are quite simple. One is magicka, one is stamina. One basically gives you minor life steal. It applies it to the target, but it also heals you, scaling off of your maximum health. So the higher your health, the better, because now you heal for taunting. The other version, however, converts it to a stamina ability, deals physical damage instead, and reduces your target's armor, and you gain it. So this one taunts and steals armor. This one turns into a heal. And with the current stats we've got now, with like 30 or 40k health, that's not critting, but 5.3, 7.9, not too bad. If you built specifically for that, taunting multiple targets is going to keep you alive for quite a while you're trying to control the room. Not bad at all. Again, you're building crux for that, which means you take less damage. Next up is Runespite Ward. This is a damage shield, which scales off of your maximum health, so the higher your health, the better. And the first time you take direct damage, this shield retaliates and deals magic damage back at the attacker, scaling off of your resistances from your armor. So your armor stats towards your resistances on your character sheet contribute towards this and make it stronger. You do consume a crux, but you heal yourself. And the strength of the heal is based on how many crux you have stacked. So if you have one, you get a nice heal. If you have none, you get none, by the way. If you have one, you get a nice heal. 2 is pretty good. And 3 is much, much stronger. So again, we'll demonstrate that. Quite simply, you have a damage shield that gives you a 15k heal there with no crits. Let's activate some crux and see how high we can get that. Just with this. This is not a proper build, so don't judge me. 15. Come on, crit. Crit while I'm recording, because that's what really happens. It's not going to do it. It's going to show me up. Boo! How dare you? Anyway, you get the idea. That has 2 morphs, just like everything else. Morph number 1. Consume a crux to refund the cost. So, that's dirty. Consume a crux to heal yourself, scaling off of your maximum health, much like before, but refund 21% of the skill per crux. So that would be up to a total of 63% reduction actually returned to you. So instead of 4.3k for the damage shield, you would get back a vast majority of that. And the other one drastically increases the size of the damage shield for the first second. So it's a big damage shield. It's increased with this morph, but you get 1 second worth of extra. As you can see there, that 14k turned into 17 at base, and the first 1 second is 28k. Why is that important? Well, if you're about to suck up a heavy attack and you apply this version of it, then you're going to take much, much less damage on impact, which is quite nice. It does, again, still apply the heal and the damage returned based off of the crux that you hold. So we're going to taunt that heals and a damage shield that benefits from crux and heals you also. Not bad. So as a tank, taunt and damage shield heals you. That initially on testing was not doing that. Not both of them anyway. It's a little different now. There were discrepancies between that, but it's different to what it was when we first saw it. Next up is your resistance buff. Nice and simple, major resolve. Everybody knows what that does. If you don't know what it does, it gives you a resistance bonus. But while the armor persists, and this is a friggin' game changer, while the armor bonus persists, while this buff is on you, if you get hit, the targets that hit you will be affected with minor breach. Minor breach is tricky. You can have it from a sword and board taunt, which we don't necessarily have on this particular character because we've got a taunt here with no sword and board. But you can also get it from other skills and status effects. Having it on tap just for getting hit is big, big business. Very, very handy. So basically, all you need to do is taunt the target. And it's not major breached at the moment, but it is going to mean that that target will punch you and it will be minor breached straight away. Kind of handy. Now, the morphs for this, outside of the basic resistance bonus that you've just gained, are increases the duration and when damaged creates a crux. Yes, you generate crux for being hit. So you don't have to spam your taunt on multiple targets or even on a single target. You can just taunt it once, and then just for being hit every few seconds, you will generate crux, and then you can use it with your damage shield. Longer duration builds up stuff you need. Nice. The other one, gain a bonus to block mitigation and consume a crux to increase the bonus. So what you can do is you can activate it to give yourself the resistance bonus, but per crux consumed, you gain block mitigation when you spend it. So reactivating the skill will do so, or activating it in the first place. Next up is Runic Defence. This puts a rune out there, and members of your group gain minor resolve. No more combat prayer required unless you want minor berserk. And you gain minor protection, so you're stronger as far as your defensives are concerned, and so is your group. But the first time you are damaged while below 50% health, the minor protection goes away and you get a massive heal scaled off your max health. Simply put, this. Cool. Anyway, while that is on you, you can see your timers there. The green one with the 19 seconds on it and going down. If you get hit under 50% health, that will all disappear. You lose your minor protection and you get a massive heal. And that can crit bloody high. Scaled off of your max health, and if you crit, you can build to make that a really, really strong heal and basically bring you back to life just before you're about to die. And the morphs for this, of course, are slightly different to each other. This one immobilizes nearby enemies, so activating it gives you an area of effect immobilization for enemies that are close by. Again, it still buffs your group. Bear in mind, when this runs out, it doesn't take away the resolve from everyone, it just takes away the protection from you. The other one grants armor and crowd control immunity when you heal. So if you go down to 50% health and this pops and gives you that heal, you now are immovable. That's an immovable potion built into a skill just in case you get in trouble. No class has got that. That's completely brand new. There are skills that can provide immovability, but there isn't one that gives you an oh shit button by default that heals you and stops you from being stunned at the same time. So if you are in trouble, this will save you. Now, on a DK, generally speaking, if your health goes really, really low, you pop Dragon Blood. This one, you just fire and forget, and if you get in trouble, it does it for you. This one is a little funky, I'm not going to lie. This one allows you to paralyze the target. Basically, like a fear, it stuns the enemy. Kind of useful, but it's single target. Now, in PvP, I can see this being very, very useful because you just single target stun people. PvE... AoE options are out there to make this not quite as useful. However, it's got a bit of a twist. For players, this has a 4-second stun or paralyze. On enemies that are not players, they have a paralyze that lasts 8 seconds. So that is a long stun if you really need it, but most enemies that can be stunned aren't that much of a threat. But it can be useful. Also applies minor vulnerability, so you get extra damage to the group. Looks like this. Doesn't have a huge range. And you'll see that it's got minor vulnerability on it. If that was an enemy that could be charmed, stunned, immobilized, whatever, the dummy can't be, then of course you'd see the extra effect from that. Now the morphs are slightly weird. This one charms and snares the target. So what this does, instead of stunning it, it makes it walk to you. And slow. PvE enemies, this will happen for 8 seconds. Players, it will happen for 4. This is kind of a very, very, very slow pull at short range. The enemy just walks up to you. It doesn't hit you or anything. It just comes to you. Again, I'm on the fence with this one because I feel like most enemies that can be pulled, snared, charmed, stunned aren't a massive threat. So this won't be a complete game changer, especially since it's an individual skill. AoE would be better. The other one, different story entirely. This applies minor brittle to the target and you don't need an ice staff to do so. So while the charm and the stun and the snare are all useful for very weak targets, minor brittle on tap without an ice staff is pretty good. And that's 20 seconds. You don't even have to mess with that. You've got a class taunt, you've got a class minor brittle, you've got a class minor resolve and immobilize. You've got a class minor breach just for being hit. The only thing we're missing here is major breach, which you can grab from your group. So not bad. But now we're on the healing skill line. We're going to go over the passives in a moment. This is a brand new idea to Ultimates. So this is going to be a little bit out there for those of you that are not sure of what to expect from this and assume that it'll probably just be something that goes on the ground and heals people. Technically it does, but it only heals if you need heals. If you're full health, it won't. What you do with this is it plants a big AoE on the ground. As you can see, massive. Inside this area. Looks cool, doesn't it? Inside this area, your group will be given increased weapon and spell damage. Yes, a healing ultimate that gives buffs. And it will heal people inside of it up to X amount of health, depending on how you're built. And it depends on the proportion of the health of the player at the time. How much is missing depends on how much you heal them. But it spawns at 30% health and grows stronger the more you heal it. So you heal the glyph in the middle and it gets stronger and benefits the group more. I'll show you again so this makes more sense. Look at the health. It has 30% health. If you heal that, it gets stronger. How bloody cool is that? And that lasts for 15 seconds. Weapon and spell damage buff to the group, heals to the group, and gets stronger the more healing you do. So if you are a healer that throws out backflips and not many heals, and you just capitalize on a couple of skills to get some minor bonuses and some minor heals just to help the group a little bit, you're not going to benefit much from this, but it will still benefit you regardless. If you are built for raw heals, like really big ones, this ultimate is God mode. Now the morphs. Two different variants. The Glyphic spawns at a higher health percentage, so same benefits, but it spawns at 50% instead of 30%, so you've got your upfront bonuses nice and quick. The other variant is completely different. We're going to show you what this looks like as well, because the visuals are not quite the same. Such a cool ulti. It's purple! And it's 70% health instead of 50 or 30. What's the difference? Get ready for this. The heal, or the health of this, grows stronger the more you damage it. Spawns at 70% health and grows stronger the more you damage it. Now, it's slightly counterintuitive to what you were already used to, because the other one, the more you heal it, the stronger it gets over the 15 seconds. This one, the more damage you do to it, the stronger it gets, but you're going to end up killing it. So, in one scenario, the stronger your healer, the better. In another scenario, the more DPS your group is doing, the better. How about that? So as you can see, 70% health, and I can hurt it. And the more I hurt it, the more it heals me. And it doesn't go away when you kill it. Let's do that again. For science, obviously. Bear in mind, we're not built for damage. Let's kill it within the timer. With no DPS. See? You don't kill it. It still persists. You can get it to a certain point where it peaks. But, do loads of damage, get bigger heals, keep your buff. Fan-bloody-tastic. Cool skill. Healer's going to love that. Actually, anyone, even if you're not a healer. Because technically, if you're a DPS or a tank, you could just drop that in the room and people just have to do what they're doing. Anyway, let's get into the healing skills. This is a little different to most. Cost is determined by your max resource. Again, that is a magicka costing skill there. But if I have higher stamina than my magicka, it switches. This craft a series of precise apocryphal runes that then propel themselves at yourself or an ally in front of you. The runes heal for X amount of damage 3 times and generate crux. So this is your single target healing skill. You aim it at somebody else or it will get you depending on who's got the lowest health. Each crux reduces the cost of the ability. It's expensive. This is basically your breath of life. Wrong bar. And it looks like this. 3 quick heals, all equal to each other unless they crit, for you or somebody else. Now the range for this is 28 meters in a conal range, kind of telegraph. So it doesn't have to be directly in front of you. It could be slightly at an angle or whatever, but you have to get used to where to aim it. You do have to look at the target. The 2 morphs for this are quite simple. Heals an additional amount over time, so it's more, and it's over 6 seconds. Or healing low health targets grants them ultimate. So they can get minor heroism for 6 seconds, generating 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds even, just for being healed by you. So the 2 basic morphs there. One is a stronger heal, the other one gives ulti regen. Next up is Remedy Cascade. Channel an Abyssal C2... I'm not going to read all that. It's a beam. It's a beam. Like the damage beam, it's a Healy beam. Now, this is a little different to your average heal as well. Yes, it drains over time. But at the same time, what this does is this will give back resources to your allies. So you can consume Crux to also restore 728 magicka and stamina per Crux spent to your allies over that duration. And it looks like this. How cool is that? Rapid healing. Absolutely rapid. You can move. You can aim it. And if you look up on top of something really high, you can actually see its full effect. Also, I can't do stairs. Or banisters. Look at that. That is mega. Bible heal. So, this does come with its own morphs, obviously. Heals for more on low health targets. So the lower the health, the bigger the heal. And this one, the beam gradually heals for more the longer you channel it. Up to 192%. The beam slightly changes color depending on which morph you take. That one's kind of got a yellow tint to it. And as you can see, it gets more and more and more and more aggressive. So big heals. Very good for that ultimate as well if you had that active. But what we'll do here is we'll show you both variants. So if you are in a group and you're not sure which one you've got, then I guess this will help you. Where's it gone? That one there. And beam. So the big, thick green one is the one that has the extra heal at low health. The other one has the extra heal over time regardless. So that's going to be kind of very situational. You might want to have the extra heal because people keep getting too low on their health too much, so it gives them a bit of a burst. Or you might want the one that does it over time anyway, and it could kind of balance itself out, but it's not really going to peak until it gets to the end. Next. Chakram Shields. This will give damage shields to your group. Up to 4 allies in front of you will be given one of these. Wizzy Discs. Quite simple. It's a damage shield. Outside of that, however, it prefers the lowest targets without shields. So if they have a shield already, or they're not the lowest target, it will try to find a better one. But again, essentially, it's 4 allies, so if you're in a dungeon, it's going to get everyone anyway. Morphs for this. Creates Crux. Recasting the shield on a target increases the maximum strength of the shield as well. So basically a 30% increase based on however your shields are stacked. You've obviously got to consider there are stats and bonuses that contribute to that. At the moment, it's 7.4k, but there's things that you can do to change it. Again, the same rule applies to those. It prefers lower health targets without a shield, but if it has got them and you're in a dungeon, everyone's going to get them anyway. The other morph consumes a Crux to reduce the cost. So one is cheaper, the other one increases the maximum shield size. So quite simply put, damage shield, apply it again, bigger damage shield. And it generates Crux each time you cast it. So just spamming shields will give you that, and then you can use them on this. Lovely. Right, next up. Arcanist Domain. Draw 4 for your time and invoke the big words that we're not going to say. Basically, you know, people want to bring certain sets and bonuses to a group. That just got deleted with this particular skill. Minor courage, minor fortitude, minor intellect, minor endurance, increasing weapon and spell damage by 15%, and your health, mag, and stamina recovery by 15% just by doing this. Your group has those buffs for standing in there. Nearly lost my voice. That's it. Stand in the stuff, get buffs. Watch my buff timers. Oh, they're gone. Oh, they're back again. Oh, they're gone. You have to stand in it, people. You have to stand in it. And it is applied where you stand. You can't cast it into different places. It applies where you stand. So if you want it to be moved, you move it. If someone wants it, they have to step in it or you have to move. Simple. The morphs, however, the effects remain on you and your allies for a short duration after leaving. You saw me just walk out and they disappeared. You keep it for 7 seconds. This will heal you and your allies over time, however. It will heal over the whole duration. So if we take that one, reapply it. Now it's a heal and a buff and some buffs and more buffs and heals. And heals and buffs and buffs and heals. Mental. Very cool skill. Love it. And finally, the one you've all been waiting for. 2 variations to this. This increases your movement speed after teleporting. Yes, teleport. And this one allows your allies to jump through it as well. Check this out. Yes, we have a gap closer, like Streak, but not. But like it, but not. How cool is that? Now, Streak, generally speaking, makes you dart in a straight line away from the enemy, and you can keep going in a straight line, you're gone. This one doesn't allow you to do that, and it has a cooldown. So as you can see, it's gone grey on my bar for 6 seconds. Here's the twist, though. While you can go through that, to gain distance, to get out of the way, maybe a dodge roll on a mechanic, who knows? Because you could just do this. Oh, he's going to hit me. Haha, you missed. You can go back through it. And back through it. Oh, let's try again. And again. And again. You can really mess with people, but the trick to that is to actually get out of the area of effect on the ground, otherwise you can't use it. So you have to get out of that green shit. So go through, get out of the green stuff, go back in. That's up to 22 meters maximum. So it can't go quite far. It's going to take some getting used to. That is like the teleport on Nova in Warframe. Really, really fun stuff. Yes, you can use it to get from one place to another, but there are restrictions, obviously, because it counts as a gap closer. So things like take flight, where they will work, this will work. Where that won't, this generally won't. But I'm sure people will find ways to break it. And finally, we're just going to go over the passives nice and quick for each individual skill line. And then get on the PTS if you can and just play with it. It's fun as fuck. Fated Fortune. This is in a DPS skill line, of course. Herald of the Tome. When you gain or spend Crux, you increase your critical damage and critical healing for 7 seconds. So gaining it, nice and simple. You've got this bonus here, which will pop up every so often. Fated Fortune. If you can see that, you've got increased crit damage and healing. So the more you gain, the better. However, comes a little bit of a twist. If you stack 3 and try to stack more, it will run out. So you need to spend it to keep it. As you can see there, it's about to fall off. 3, 2, 1. Build up some more Crux. So that can be manipulated or not. Up to you. Now, you mastered a warp and weft of your very soul. That is such a hard statement. Wow. When you are restoring magical or stamina, you increase your weapon and spell damage by 5% for 10 seconds. So if you have a full bar right now, you're not generating stamina or magicka in any way, shape, or form. If you don't have a full bar, you'll be recovering. While you're recovering, you benefit from that. Your attacks wound the mind with heretical knowledge, increasing damage dealt by status effects. Any status effects you apply are 15% stronger than anybody else in the game. Bear in mind, the Dragon Knight does have a 50% increase to burning and poisoned, but you will have 15% there for any status, including those. You must have an ability of this skill line slotted at the time, though. These ones don't require them. This one does. This one is just bonkers, in my opinion. For every skill of this skill line slotted, you gain 991 physical and spell pen. For a light armor build, you barely need any buffs in content with that passive. For a medium build, you just hit cap very easily. Absolutely insane. Again, any of these could be adjusted. While a Soldier Apocrypha ability is active on you, you increase your armor. So basically, if you're using any tanky skill that is currently active on you, you've got more resistances. This one, we're going to have to swap the back bar to see how effective this really is. Each ability on your bar of this particular skill line gives you increased recovery. The equivalent of a bonus on an armor set. 129 is a normal recovery bonus. So let's put some of these on the bar. Let's put all of them on the bar. Then you can see the max bonus. 774 recovery to both resources. And your health. That gives us, without even trying, at the moment, 1.9k mag recovery, 1.5k stam recovery. That's stupid. Absolutely stupid. Yes, obviously minor and major bonuses do stack with that. It can get really high. Casting Arcanist ability warps the weave of... I'm not even going to explain that. Basically, you bring minor evasion to the group. Do you know how hard it is to say some of these passives? They've got some really weird wording to try and make you tongue twister the crap out of yourself. Just read it for what it is. Minor evasion for 20 seconds, reducing the area of effect damage to the entire group for 10% damage incoming. This can affect every 5 seconds. Nice and simple. Basically, activate a skill. Major evasion, 20 seconds. You can apply it once every 5, but it lasts for 20 seconds. What does the class bring to the group? Minor evasion for everyone. That is a game changer, especially in heavy AoE situations. And finally, the will of an Arcanist is absolute. Was that really bloody necessary? When you consume Crux, you gain 4 ultimate, and this can happen once every 8 seconds. So any skill that gives you the ability to gain Crux will by default give you ultimate regen. 4 at least once every 8 seconds. Healing stuff. Your Master of Weaving Fate and Abyssal Water increases your healing done by 3% for each active Crux. So up to a maximum of 9. We'll even demonstrate it because we can. If it shows the stat that you've got at the moment, it might not. It doesn't. Okay, fine. 9%. You stay... Everything's a story, isn't it? I'm not going to read it. You generate Crux and restore 225 magical or stamina, whichever maximum's higher. So every time you generate one of those triangle-y, whizzy things, you will get back your highest resource. Knowledge is power. Another story. Increases magicka and stamina recovery by 18%. That's just a bonus. You don't even need to have one of these skills slotted. That's bonkers. Now, you don't need an ability to be active for this one, but you do need to have one slotted from this skill line. And basically, it reduces the cost and increases the strength of your damage shields. One skill from this skill line on your bar increases your damage shield strength. But above all, some of the explanations are a bit poncy. So in a nutshell, basically looking at how things are based on passives, bonuses, skill slotted, etc, etc. You've got a very unique way to play here. Lots of buffs and bonuses the group can benefit from. Some very different ultimates to take advantage of, especially protection based ultis for damage shields and the way that you heal. Big damage shields, in fact. Your own personal taunt, area of effect reduction to damage on tap, high pen, high recovery, high crit damage, high crit heals. It's a very unique class, to say the least. The way that it feels so far is very smooth, very fluid, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can just press buttons and have fun. If you do know what you're doing, you can get a lot out of it. And the 2 beams, healing and damage, are insane. So if you've got access to the PTS, jump on there as soon as you can. You can play this now, and you can mess with all the skills, make your builds, do what you want to do. But bear in mind, things are subject to change, so that might not all go through as it is now. So thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, obviously hit that button. It's free. If you're not following on Twitch, that's also free. And if you're not following on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the website xynodegaming.com are all free. What's not free is the join button. Press that and see what's there. Maybe you'll like it. And what's also not free is Patreon. You can support there financially and get bonuses and perks for doing so, including access to the private Discord channel. Thank you very much for watching. You will see more of these videos in the future, but that basically wraps up all the skills for the Arcanist. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.